People are trading their electric vehicles up for an internal combustion engine. Yeah, after several years, we've seen electric vehicles grow in popularity and they're expanding the marketplace. Elon's been pushing the products very, very hard, and cars are selling at an alarming rate. Just take a look down in California. We were down there this summer and we saw Teslas everywhere you went. But there's certainly a demographic and more of a geographical specific location that seems to be much more popular for EVs as well as Teslas in general. And what we've seen though is this natural shifting in the marketplace where everybody wanted to get an early adopter, wanted to get their hands on an electric vehicle. The Tesla seemed to be the place to go. They were one of the earliest players to the game. And so electric vehicles were selling like hotcakes. And if you ask any advocates for the EV marketplace, they're all going to likely tell you that their vehicles are selling, they're growing in market share, and they're selling to more and more and more people. But that's not entirely true. Yes, they're selling more vehicles every year. However, the acceleration of the velocity at which these vehicles are landing in the hands of new buyers are slowing down. Yes, there's more and more on the road today, but they're slowing down dramatically because there's other options. A lot of people, once they taste what it's like to own an electric vehicle, and it's one thing to say it on paper, it's another thing to do a little bit of research, but it's an entirely different thing when you're driving an electric vehicle and you're on a road somewhere and it tells you to go to this charge station. You go there and there's a lineup of 5 cars in front of you. Or you go to this other charge station and it's damaged or out of service. Or you only get 300 miles, meaning you have to stop 2 or 3 times on a long road trip across to the coast. So a lot of people are realizing a lot of those disadvantages. Now the advantages are clear. You definitely have this feeling of it's cleaner, it's quieter, it's more relaxing and serene. And a lot of them bring performance that absolutely trumps that of internal combustion vehicles. But a lot of people are realizing that now governments are getting their hands on this whole idea of where's the road tax coming from? I mean, when you drive typically an internal combustion engine vehicle, those usually come at a cost of the gas tax at the pump. You're paying a portion of that goes directly into the road repairs, building, construction, maintenance. But when you're driving a Tesla, which coincidentally is almost double the weight of your garden variety internal combustion vehicle of similar stature, it's taking a toll on the roads. It's more impactful on the roads, and yet there's no place for the governments to charge this tax. So now they're sending a bill or a surcharge. A lot of states and now certain provinces in Canada are looking at surcharges directly to owners of all EVs to say, look, we're not getting it from the pump on the taxation perspective, so we're going to have to charge you in some way to make sure that we recoup our costs because you're still sharing the same roads. So while clearly there's benefits both positive as well as negative in owning electric vehicles, the conversation really isn't here to influence you one way or the other. But according to Edmunds statistics, they've pulled up some data here recently and realized that there's changes and shifting in the market. And while people who are driving EVs, and now we're clearly seeing, the early generation of a lot of the Teslas were, the 2012, 2013, they've been out now for a good 10 years. But now a lot of the legacy auto manufacturers, we've got Porsche, Taycan, we've got Audi, e-tron, we've got Mercedes and the EQ series of vehicles, we've got Hyundai and Kia, and you name it, almost every legacy manufacturer is now coming out with their own variations of electric vehicles. General Motors, Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, Jeep, they're all coming out with their own, and a lot of them are scaling up completely. While we're seeing Ford openly admit that we're losing money on the sale of every vehicle from the F-150 Lightning, as well as their Tesla, well, as long as their Mustang Mach-E, sorry, not Tesla, that they're losing money. But they also realize that they have to be competitive in that market, as that's where the market appears to be shifting. Now, a lot of this is political, and time will tell as the politicians change hands what this all looks like for the future. But currently, the way it stands, the market is in such a place where more and more people are looking at other options, alternative fuel arrangements. But the Edmunds statistics shows a very interesting set of numbers, and that people that have traditionally bought EVs in the last little while are making alternative choices. And a lot of them are deciding, you know what, no, I'm going to go back to driving an internal combustion vehicle. As a matter of fact, the latest statistics based on Edmunds actually shows in 2024 that as many as 51% of current EV owners have just traded up to a brand new or maybe slightly used electric or internal combustion vehicle. That's right. They've flopped in their Tesla and gone to a standard garden variety gas type engine. So 51%. So the majority of buyers trading in are going back to internal combustion engine. Now, interestingly enough, I've got some statistics here. EVs, those that are trading up, there's about a third, so roughly 32% of current EV owners are going back into EVs. But also, interestingly enough, most of those are coming from Teslas because we know Tesla was the new dog in town and the new game. A lot of Teslas are being punted and people are looking for alternatives. As I mentioned, legacy automakers. Now Hyundai and Kia seem to be a very popular brand. They're highly incentivized. Nissan had a kick at it with the Leaf. They seem to be failing. And of course, the F-150 Lightning is the best-selling electric full-size truck on the market, although they don't have a lot of competition. The fact remains is a lot of the current Tesla owners are trading in for non-Tesla vehicles or legacy manufacturers. So that's about a third of the vehicles being traded up. And interestingly enough, hybrids are losing ground. For a while there, people felt like hybrids were the future. Hybrids were the vehicle to own because it gave you the best of both worlds. It allowed you to get some of that extra, range. It allowed you to get some of that extra fuel economy when you're driving around in the city, but you didn't have to deal with anything. You basically just turn the key and go, and the vehicle would usually take care of itself. So the onboard hybrid systems were very, very popular for a while. But look at the statistics here. Since 2019, standard hybrid vehicle sales or trade up went from 18% now to 10% is what people are trading in for. So clearly there's losing market share for the regular hybrid vehicles. Almost half. They've literally been cut in half. Conversely, what's been taking up that gap is the sales of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Interestingly enough, going back to 2019, zero existed. 2020, about 2%. And now, fast forward to 2024, and we are seeing about 8% now are plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So where you're losing on the hybrids, we're gaining on the plug-in hybrids, because plug-in hybrids now give people that thought that, you know what, I have a charging station already. Why don't we reuse that? Because remember, these are people trading their EVs in for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So they're going to that space now because a lot of them already say, hey, I've got a charging station. I'm already able to accommodate that. But most importantly, they're getting the best of both worlds. They're not dealing with range anxiety because they still have the internal combustion engine, which can play the double duty of motivating you down the road as well as charging your batteries depending on the particular mode. But it does allow you to plug it in so you can do short trips on pure electric, which gives people a real true sense of hybrid drivetrain ability. And the plug-in hybrids seem to be growing in popularity, where the standard hybrids seem to be going away, because all they do is sort of give you a little bit of an improvement fuel economy, but now all you've done is introduced extra complexity, more parts to fail, and with time, a lot of those standard hybrid vehicles will get costly to repair. Doesn't matter if you're driving a Toyota or Honda, they will get more expensive to maintain and repair, batteries, motors, and all those components. So what we're seeing is plug-in hybrids are gaining, regular hybrids are losing, but on the internal combustion engine side of it, let's talk about that, because today, 51% of the current EV owners are going back to internal combustion engine. However, it's actually losing ground because back in 2019, 71%, according to Edmunds data, would go back to ICE. So if you had an EV back in 2019, 71% would likely go back to internal combustion engines. Then in 2020, we saw it went to 76%, then 72%, then 66%, then 53%. You see the trend, we're losing market share. And now what you're seeing is the EVs, as they're being traded in, are actually gaining slight bit of ground on the internal combustion engine. Although with that said, the ICEs are still the favored vehicle for trade-ins of existing EV owners. So people are still looking, the majority of people are still looking at getting out of their electric vehicles and trading in for a good old-fashioned internal combustion engine. Now with that said, EVs, back in 2019, 10% went back into an EV. 2020, 9%. Then in 21, we saw 13%. 22, we saw 21%. 23, we saw 29%. And now in 24, we're seeing 32%. So what you're actually seeing is a growing trend of electric vehicles expanding and taking on market share, while the ICEs are slowly losing market share. And it's almost an inversely proportional gain. Now again, currently today in 24, we're seeing most people coming out of EVs going into ICEs, but it feels like if you extrapolate on a long-term curve, it feels as though, give it another 5 years, and it seems as though ICEs might be losing market share. Time will tell. I mean, there's alternative. We're looking at other types of means like hydrogen, for example, that some of these manufacturers, Toyota is not the quickest to get on the bandwagon. And we know Toyota is one of the biggest manufacturers on the planet. And they sort of lead the charge. So if they're bucking the idea of going pure EV and they come up with an alternative fuel source, bet my bottom dollar that more people will likely lean to Toyota as being one of the biggest breakthrough manufacturers. And that can have a major influence on where these trends headed. Again, also politics could have a major impact on where these trends are headed. So I'd like to hear your answer or your thoughts down there. I'd love to hear it. What's going on? Where the future is now, and we're seeing it unfold right before our very eyes. People are done with EVs and they're trading back in for ICEs. For now. Love to see your comments. Please be sure to check out right there what goes on with new vehicles when they don't sell. They've been sitting on the lot for a year, 2, 3 years old, like they are today. That's what's going on right there. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.